Hi, I'm Jill from Friends on the Block. In this video, I begin our series called How to Teach Anyone to Read and Have Fun While Doing It. I'll be explaining a simple and flexible routine you can use when teaching a child to read. I'm particularly excited about this how-to series. I'll be providing specific step-by-step guidance about how to teach beginning reading. The series is intended for families and tutors with little to no experience teaching reading, but we believe experienced teachers will also find this series helpful. You can use your own materials to implement the ideas, or use our free ebooks and games. You may also be interested in our other materials for purchase. Our goal at Friends on the Block is to help ensure that everyone, regardless of disability or circumstance, learns to read. Our materials are meaningful and that we combine phonics and word learning with books very quickly. Our materials are also very efficient as well as effective. And finally, they're friendly. By that we mean that they're fun and easy to use. I'll begin by explaining the 3 parts of this simple and flexible routine. The first part is a very quick warm-up, just a minute or 2 where you introduce a new skill, or you may practice a skill that you've been working on, maybe 1 or 2 skills. In part 2, you do book reading, and this part lasts longer. You want to spend a good bit of time reading with your student. Usually both you and the student take turns reading. While you're reading, it's really important that you provide help when the student struggles, and you need to provide this help very quickly. In part 3, you play a learning game or do a fun learning activity. And this also can last from 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how much time you have available. So the total time would be anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes. I do recommend that if you can't do all 3 parts of the routine in a day, that you spend at least 5 minutes book reading every day, or as many days as you can. During the warm-up, you might introduce a few new words. You might practice a few words you've been working on. You might introduce a new letter sound or a few new sounds. You also might practice sounding out a few words or spell a few words that you've been practicing. So you choose a skill that you want to introduce to the child or that you want to have them practice. For book reading, you want to select books that include words that the student needs to practice. But you also want to think about what does the student want to read. You want to give them as many choices as you can, but it is important that they practice the words that they need to learn. Usually, both you and the student will take turns reading. The student should point to each word as they read it, and you should provide help quickly if they struggle with any words. You might want to take a look at my previous blog as well as some videos that provide some more details about how to select books and how to provide help. I'll put links to those videos below, and I'll also provide some more tips in the next video. The third part of the routine is to play a learning game or do a fun learning activity. To plan for this, you need to think about what skill does the student need to practice, and then choose or create a fun game or activity to practice that skill. Just like before, during all of this time, you want to provide help very quickly if the student is struggling with a word or an item. We have some other videos by my co-author, Dr. Jennifer Cheatham, with lots of great fun ideas of things that you can do at home to practice important skills. I'll post the link to those below. I want to finish with a summary and some tips. So in summary, the first part is a quick warm-up where you introduce a new skill or practice a skill that you've been working on. You want this to be very quick, just a minute or 2, to get them thinking about what's coming up in the lesson and remind them of what you've been practicing or introduce something new. But this should be very quick. Then the second part should be longer because you want to spend a lot of time actually reading books during the lesson. That can be anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes or maybe even more depending on your child. You can also make this part of the lesson longer or shorter just depending on how much time you have available that day. In the third part of the lesson, you'll play a learning game or do a fun learning activity, and the idea here is to get a lot of practice on whatever skill your child needs to work on. You might want to do this for 5 minutes up to 15 minutes. If they're very motivated and you have the time, of course you can go longer with this too. But the idea here is they get a lot of practice in a pretty short amount of time on what they need to learn. You might want to go back to the blog that I wrote that provided these tips and explained them. I'm going to talk about them a little bit here. The first tip is to develop simple routines and habits. Obviously, this whole video is about a routine that you would develop, but I also want to emphasize how important it is to get in the habit of doing the routine. You can do this routine or lesson at the same time every day, like you could say 1 o'clock every day. But you can also link it to something that you already do every day. So you might do this routine or this lesson right before lunch, right after a snack, or right before bedtime, whatever works for you and your family. It is important that you stick with whatever time you choose. But if the time you've chosen just isn't working out, think about another time that might work better for you. Think about why this time's not working out very well and choose another time. But then stick with your new time. If you make this a habit, not only will it be easier for you to remember to do this, but it will also help your child. Usually, if something becomes a habit, your child gets used to doing it, and they are more cooperative if this is just something that's part of your normal routine. Tip number 2 is to always provide help quickly. My general rule of thumb is if a child is struggling with something for 2 to 4 seconds, you want to show them the correct answer. So if they're missing a word or they're struggling on a word, just tell them the word. So you want to model for them and then have them copy you. And providing this help quickly helps keep things happy. This leads me to tip number 3. Always keep things happy while reading together. If things are not going well, you might want to seek the advice of someone else. It might be a friend, a family member, or it could be a teacher that your child has had or has right now. Seek some help and get some tips and get some advice about what might work for your child. But it is really important that you keep it happy while you're reading together. Pay attention to your child's behavior, and if you see they're starting to get frustrated or are bored, try to pick up the pace, maybe take on more of the reading for them, and they can read a little bit less, you can read a little bit more. Skip to the end of a book, go ahead and shift to your activity, finish your book a little bit sooner, maybe read the rest of the book for them. Some things you can do to kind of speed things along and relieve some of the stress from the student if they're starting to struggle. The last tip is just to take the first step today and go ahead and get started. In the next video, I'll give you some examples of some warm-up activities you can do. I'll tell you a little bit more about book reading as well as choosing games and how to make sure those games are fun and effective. Thank you so much for watching. If you find our content useful, please help us by telling other people about us. On social media, like us, follow us, share us, and subscribe. Become a free member on our website, and with that you get access to 17 of our e-readers for free, some of our games, and monthly giveaways. You might also consider making a purchase. We have a premium digital membership that gives you access to lots of materials, and we also have physical products you might want to purchase. Thank you again for watching.